Cannabis Media.
Live from the Visual Radio TV studios in Quincy, Massachusetts, it's We Talk Live with Kurt Dalton from Cannabis.net and Jimmy Young from ProCannabisMedia.com.
Yeah, I want to actually give you guys.
Here we thought we were going to bring food to us. It's like right out loud. Now we get T-shirts.
So you said
a few articles on Cannabis.net about margin compression. And I think when this 2 to 3 years out, we're going to see the price of this flower come down, down, down.
All right, the show must go on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Weed Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I am Kurt Dalton, the founder of Cannabis.net.
Hey, anything going on in the world, Kurt?
It's pretty quiet out there. You know, we got the bomb shelter and they got the blockades up. What's going on in the world today?
I don't know, but that coronavirus has killed us in a way that I didn't expect. And at least we are still here to talk about it. Unfortunately, our two main guests have been delayed and have been overwhelmed. And that would be the two founders of the New England Cannabis Convention, Jeff Lawrence and Mark Shepard. They both were not able to join us at the very last minute. In fact, I think Mark is on his way to Chicago to try and save that show that they have scheduled on April 3rd and 4th in Chicago. At this time, that show is still going on. However, the one in Boston is done. In fact, join the club. Kurt, I have never seen so much panic in the streets, panic in sports. I mean, everywhere there's panic except in this studio. We're very much under control. The coronavirus obviously is on everybody's mind. Yes, we will be talking about it. Yes, we have some doctors to talk to about that, including Dr. Ryan Zachlin. We'll be talking to him in just a few minutes. And then at the top of the hour, we bring on Dr. Jordan Tischler as well. But that's not all, right, Kurt?
That's right. Not only is it a great night to do this show, we're asking everyone up front right now, if you're watching, to share this on your social networks because we have two doctors coming on to talk about the effects cannabis can have on a virus. If you don't know, THC has a lot of antiviral properties. Now, it does not stop the coronavirus. It is not a vaccine. But in a sense, if you're going to do a lot of orange juice before a cold and multivitamins, does it behoove you now to take THC, say edibles every day, or some version of cannabis with viruses going around? And we're going to talk to doctors about this. So we want people, we're holding off the first doctor so that you can share it and kind of tell people, hey, there's doctors coming on talking about cannabis and viruses. You need to watch this. So please share it now. We also might have the Pure Oasis guys calling in with the first dispensary, recreational in Boston.
And that was actually a pretty big deal. Think about it. Another historic event in Boston that the first social equity economic empowerment group, Kobe Evans, and is it Kevin Hart? Is that the other one?
Yes.
Have now opened up Pure Oasis on Blue Hill Avenue, right across from the Franklin Park Zoo. And you know what? There's no sign outside, but we will have some B-roll of their opening that we will be able to share with you so you'll know exactly where it is. I believe it is 430 Blue Hill Avenue in Dorchester.
Yes.
They couldn't get the 420 address, I guess.
I know. That'd probably
missed it
knock
by
a
10.
house over.
That's right. So please share this onto your Facebook pages, all your social media. And we do have, I do have Facebook up on the Pro Cannabis Media page. So if you want to shoot me a comment or a question, I will try to get that forward. I will tell you that there is a little bit of a delay between what is coming out of my mouth now and what I will see coming out of my mouth, as gross as that might be, in just about 4 minutes. That's called live streaming. That's just how this whole thing works.
And we also have a call-in feature this week. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yes, we do. And I actually think I might remember the number. No, I won't. No. It's 617-544.
We'll get it for you. You can call it. But here's the thing. If we have a phone guest, we can't take your call. So if a doctor is on the line, and we have two doctors coming talking to us by phone tonight about corona and cannabis, you can put it right underneath the Facebook feed. Type in, we have people working here tonight that will look at your comment and your question for the doctor. And then if we don't have a call-in guest, you're welcome to, if something we say or talk about, you want to chime in and give your opinion, you can use the call-in line and we'll put you on the air and take your questions or do comments.
And the number is 617-544-7307. So for those of you who are sports nuts. I believe that's John Hanna and Phil Esposito.
You have to be very
Even the-
New England fans for
I
sure.
know they're New
to get
England
those.
fans, right? I understand, but that's pretty much it. And of course, you have double Bobby Orr in there too with number 4.
Give it to him again.
The number is 617-544-7307. And, of course, I am also on the Facebook page, and we can certainly add in some of your comments and to say hello to the guys here and everything. And have we introduced our third member of our team
we haven't-
tonight?
We actually have another guy.
So standing in for Mark Shepard and Jeff Lawrence is a good friend, a somewhat regular on this show. It's David Rabinovitz. There he is.
Welcome, David.
Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Good to see you, and thank you for coming out of the woodwork, really, and coming in here and subbing. Appreciate it.
Great to be here, Jimmy.
Tell me what's going on, first of all, in your world before we get to the Dr. Zachlin on the phone. What's going on with and it's New Can, isn't it?
It's New Can. That's
Yeah.
right.
So tell us about New Can. What's happening?
We're in the process of nailing down a location. We're about to apply to a couple more communities for host community agreements for retail stores, working with a few other teams who are trying to get ready for when the Cannabis Control Commission rolls out the home delivery licenses. So we've been pretty busy.
And for those that don't know, David is an expert in not only social empowerment but economic empowerment candidates, getting licenses and in front of cannabis commissions, not only here in Massachusetts but expanding in New England to New York, Maine, and he's really one of the Northeast U.S. experts on the SC and EE applicants who need help, whether it's with a business plan, whether it's funding, whether it's just general knowledge, getting you your deserved spot and your license, correct?
I try to be.
Okay, so that's just so we give you the proper introduction. It's not just here in Massachusetts, and he can help a lot of people. And his phone has been ringing off the hook since he's been writing for Cannabis.net, Digi Boston, Business Journal.
Yep.
What else did I miss? I mean, he's becoming
Commonwealth
out there.
Magazine.
Commonwealth
Magazine.
Awesome.
Yep.
And a couple of funeral magazines.
And hey, take the gig when you can get it, right?
That's right. People are dying to get into that one. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. Again, live streaming on Facebook. We're now up and running, and I'm now looking for any comments. Anybody wants to say hi out there. We have people already watching us, which is always fascinating to me. While we wave the flag and salute the guys from Pure Oasis who have been so patient, there's also another side to that story, that it took almost 4 years to get them to be open. The city of Boston couldn't even get it done, so they had to actually create their own little city council of cannabis. David, I know that you have already talked to that group. Why couldn't Mayor Walsh figure out a way to speed up the host agreements? I don't get it.
I can't. That one I can't comment on a lot, Jimmy. I don't know a lot about the internal politics, but I have approached some of the city councilors to talk about a better way of managing that process. We had a letter published with a lot of great co-signatories in Dig Boston to the Boston Cannabis Commission.
Yeah. Council. It's the council.
Council, the Boston Cannabis Council.
Yeah, Boston
That's
Cannabis
right.
Council. Right.
So it is unfortunate when you talk to the social equity and economic empowerment folks, some of them are going broke holding properties in Boston. And what is amazing is how hard the city is making it for local residents to get a license in the city. And that shouldn't be that hard. If anything, they should be favoring the people who are in the city. They have connections to the neighborhood. They have more concerns about the neighborhood. And the last thing the city should want is for outsiders to come in, open up stores, pull all that capital out and bring it somewhere else. When you've got people in the city who happen to own the store, when they go out to dinner at night, they're going to go out local. That means they spend it in local restaurants. Those restaurants employ local people. It just causes the money to recirculate through the community. And I'm baffled as to why it is so difficult for a local applicant in Boston to get a host community agreement.
You're really not baffled. I think you do actually know the reason. And I'll tell you what. And no disrespect to our friends in the political world, okay? I know that Mayor Walsh is a recovering alcoholic. I'm pretty sure. I think that's actually public knowledge. And I also know that Governor Baker wants to slow down this cannabis business in the state, and he's done everything he possibly can to put enough layers in place to make it as difficult as possible to get in the cannabis business. and I feel horrible about that, but those are the facts. And I'll tell you, once again, I say this all the time, I am so embarrassed by how my colored people and my gender males have what they have done to both the Native Americans and to the other people of color in this country is embarrassing and disgusting in so many ways. That's how I feel. And I think they've, again, trying to, spin it the right way because, look, we have one open now. Look what we've done. Let's wave the flag. 4 years after the voters voted this cannabis legal. And look, I'm sorry, but I'm embarrassed by that.
Well, you're not the only person. I mean, you remember, was it the Forbes article that compared Illinois to Massachusetts? How one
Chris
did
Kane,
it right?
at forefront. Yeah.
It was embarrassing. Chris Kane, that's right. He's a Bass guy too. So he wrote the article comparing the Illinois process to what we did at Bass, and it is embarrassing.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it isn't the color of your skin. A lot of it is the color of your wallet.
Right. Oh, no, and everybody's looking to get a piece of the green. David, you are 100% right. There is a money grab going on, not just here in Massachusetts, but in this industry. And unfortunately, I believe as an investment item here with cannabis, a lot of those investment dollars have dried up. Now, we now have our doctor on the phone. So let's welcome in Dr. Ryan Zachlin. Hello, Dr. Z. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
Good.
Doing all right. Hanging in there.
Good. We've got Kurt Dalton here and David Rabinovich joining me in studio. And obviously, Dr. Zachlin, the number one priority and the number one topic that everybody's talking about, of course, is the coronavirus. What are some of the things that you might have insightfully as you look at cannabis? Is there a role for cannabis and the coronavirus? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is certainly a role for cannabis in the coronavirus. I mean, as you know, I think about it from the perspective of the endocannabinoid system and those receptors that we have, including those little CB2 receptors on our immune cells, right? So we want to just think about how we can optimize our immune system. Most importantly, right, I mean, everybody, regardless, needs to stay calm. If you're not immunocompromised, if you're not frail, if you're not old, you don't have a respiratory condition, it's likely going to be in between a bad cold and the flu if you do get it. The precautions that we're taking are to minimize overwhelming the healthcare system so that those in need can be treated appropriately, and we can kind of flatten the curve, so to speak, so we don't have this large spike in cases. So that's, I think, first and foremost, people need to wash their hands, don't touch their face. Social isolation is a good idea if you can do it. In terms of cannabis, you want to think about targeting those CB2 receptors on those immune cells. So I think about terpenes like beta-caryophyllene, which are found in certain strains, but it's also found in holy basil or black pepper or rosemary. So you can use those herbs. And then you want to think about things like THCA or the THC acid, which is basically how the THC is found in its natural form in the plant. It's thought to be 10 to 20 times more potent and anti-inflammatory as THC or CBD. So using raw cannabis, or you can even take a couple buds, pea-sized buds, and drop them in some hot water, let it steep for a few minutes and drink it and eat the buds. That's a way to get your THCA. Or you can take tinctures that are found only at places like Alternative Compassion Services or NETA in Massachusetts. Also, I would say that in general, now is a good time to avoid smoking, right? You want to keep your lungs fresh. Certainly, if you are smoking, don't share, don't pass the joint. And I think, if we want to use cannabis, we can use it in the sense of helping us to stay calm and get plenty of rest. So, choose indica strains that are going to give you good sleep. They're going to keep you calm, help you to relax. I would avoid sativas that are racy. And if you tend to be paranoid, now is not the time to be paranoid.
Absolutely not. We've got paranoia amongst us all. Kurt,
I was going to say Dr. Mark Ruffalo, but I can't call you that. The picture we have doesn't have the beard anymore. So I will call you Dr. Ryan Zachlin because I don't recognize you. You walked right into the THCA, and I made in the intro of the show, people will think they'll use orange juice, they'll before a cold, they'll eat broccoli, whatever it is. Is there any logic to be taking THC for its antiviral, whether it's corona or any other virus now? Would it be a supplement like a multivitamin people should consider to fight a virus?
I mean, I think that it's, there is not necessarily the research and data to back that up. It's a little bit of a leap from bench to bedside, so to speak. But I think, especially as an integrative physician and mind-body doc, I think anytime you're doing something for yourself and saying this is good for me, there is great benefit in that. And so I don't think there's necessarily a downside, particularly with THCA, as it's not intoxicating, as long as you're not taking it in lieu of getting plenty of rest, in lieu of thinking, I don't really need to wash my hands, I'm using THCA, or I can go out and, in public because I'm using THCA or I'm using cannabis to boost my immune system. I wouldn't want people to go around thinking that. But if you are thinking that this is working for me, I mean, there is certainly enough there's enough evidence pointing to the fact that it may be helpful. Again, it's so early to say, and it may, for all we know, it could be a particular genotype that somebody has that makes them, puts them in a better relationship to, three components, one or two cannabinoids and another terpene, and there you have your antiviral effect, right? So we may know this information 10, 20 years from now. I don't know that we can extrapolate it enough to lean on it as a sole crutch for an antiviral property.
Dr. Zachlin, I'm trying to find a reason to eat edibles all day, and the coronavirus is here. Could you help me out a little?
Well, like I said, I would avoid smoking or vaping or any inhaled therapy. You need those lungs right now. I wouldn't say eat them all day necessarily, depending on what you're doing for your job. But perhaps a little bit of CBD during the day to keep yourself calm, and a little bit of THC edibles at night to get some good rest. I think is certainly now would be the time.
I tried, everybody. I tried to get full clearance on edibles all day. Go ahead, Jimmy. That's all I got.
Dr. Z, do you see a day where a doctor like yourself, a cannabis specialist on the ECS endocannabinoid system, will actually be prescribing a titration method for patients?
Yeah, I mean, I do it now, and as best I can, and I think that the part of the issue that I have is, frankly, availability and consistency. So for the patients that I can get the right formulations into their hands, the right tinctures consistently into their hands, I think that there will be, and I think that just putting, of course, a plug in for my practice, which can be found at www.zachlin.com. That's ZAKLIN.com. We actually just started taking insurance as an insurance-based model, hybrid model. And so the purpose for that was so that I could have my patient could have better access, and quite frankly, including follow-ups. So I think the model has to shift from this come in once a year, get your card for access, come back in a year, to specialists like myself, where you're being seen more frequently, more products are available to these patients, and we can continue to kind of modify and titrate their dose as needed.
So you said insurance. Is that regular? So is there coding in the Massachusetts health insurance for cannabis, or are you coding it as like a doctor visit, mind body?
No, so the fact of the matter, what I realize is I'm actually a real doctor practicing real medicine, taking care of real conditions.
No way.
And so it's actually, it's a sophisticated model, but the patients, I'm not billing for the cannabis portion. I'm billing for, I offer a comprehensive assessment in the comprehensive program, of which cannabis is one slice of that. So the slice is kind of paired off, and that's paid for in cash. And that's a separate, it's almost essentially a separate visit, if you will. And so that's separated out. And then I'm seeing them for whatever condition they're coming to me for and making recommendations. And the recommendation invariably will include cannabis as a part of it. So that's basically how I'm able to bill insurance for it.
And speaking of don't sharing that joint, one of our favorite supporters here is the Weegit titration system. Here, I'm going to hold it up. I have one now that actually works. And you can take it apart in 4 different ways. Look at that. There you go. There's 1, 2. And this right here, this little widget thing also has a filter at the end that you can throw away after you're done, and these actually fit right on to a pre-roll. Actually, it was a lot straighter before I put it in its container, but you can see how that works with a little Acti tube. Should I do it like that?
That way you can each get your
and
own widget.
I apologize for my arthritic fingers. I know it scares a lot of people.
Just children.
Just children. I believe, Dr. Zachlin, you have a clinic of some sort, an open clinic this weekend?
We do. We actually have we have a Saturday pop-up clinic up in Salem at 84 Highland Ave, Suite 311. But patients can go to the website. That's www.zaklin, or call us at 978-998-0010. And we are seeing patients. People need to stay socially isolated in terms of large crowds, but we see one patient at a time, and we do practice obviously excellent hygiene in our practice. So there's no worries there. But we're open and ready to see people.
Yes, and may I say that you have one of the nicest looking staff I've ever seen in a doctor's office. Is that okay to say that?
You can say whatever you want, Jimmy. It's always, I'm sure anybody would appreciate being told that.
There you go. That's the way I look at it too. Any other tip other than the typical washing your hands, staying away from people, the regular germophobic kind of practices that we have to use now in our regular days? Is there any other tricks? I know that Kurt talked about vitamin C. Is zinc a good thing to use as well?
Zinc is difficult. Zinc can make you nauseated. Zinc has been shown to decrease the duration of common colds. It really is an individual thing. I don't know that there's an all-comer. I think honestly, getting plenty of rest is probably the most important thing, making sure that you get plenty of sleep and give your body time to rejuvenate. And, of course, staying plenty hydrated is always key.
Absolutely. And I'm all for hydration. Lots of water, never enough in your body, correct? You can put 64 ounces a day in your body, and that's still not enough, I'm hearing.
Well, you can overhydrate. I think you have to kind of look at your urine. If your urine is absolutely clear, then you might be a little too hydrated. And of course, it depends on your condition, right? So if you have congestive heart failure or certain conditions, then you are going to end up overhydrating yourself. So I would be hesitant to say you can't overhydrate, but I think you're probably kind of referring to the fact that most people tend to be on the dehydrated side. So certainly adequate hydration, it's most people aren't going to reach that point to where they're overhydrating themselves. You can end up dropping your sodium levels, and but that's very extreme amounts of water.
There you go. Well, I'll be checking out my urine in just a few minutes. No, I'll do it at the end of the show, I promise. I won't be doing anything in a cup or anything like that. But Dr. Ryan Zachlin, I so appreciate you taking your time out on a Thursday. It's a very challenging time for the human race as we finally recognize just how easy it is to spread germs in a modern society. Good point.
Yes, it is.
All right, Dr. Z.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck at your open clinic on Saturday.
I
I also want to say, do a shout out here, and I don't know if we have our graphic ready, but a somewhat regular co-host of this show is Hillary King. And a few days ago, Hillary texted me, there she is! That's our get well wish for Hillary, who was in the Mass General Hospital 2 nights ago, showing signs of fever and the flu. And from what I understand now, they actually sent her home because I don't think they had any of the coronavirus tests to test her.
Yep, she's been in the media a little bit this week because not on the cannabis side for cannabis and corona.
Right.
Which meant something else for this year. But it's because she went to Mass General Hospital. If you're not from the area, it's one of the better hospitals in the world. And they sent her home. They didn't have a kit.
Right.
Couldn't test her,
And
so that's why.
this is actually Hillary's post on Facebook. I'm going to read it verbatim. I don't meet the CDC guidelines for having come in direct contact with someone who has confirmed tested positive, so they aren't testing me for COVID-19 due to a shortage in testing kits. However, they admitted me to the ER for evaluation for strep and influenza to see if it's one of those or rule them out. They initially said that they think it's unlikely that you have COVID-19 since I haven't had any known direct contact with someone who has tested positive, and I haven't traveled to any hotspots outside the U.S., but at initial evaluation, I, as in Hillary, caught their attention because of her symptoms and vital signs. And you know what? She even admits that she lives right down the street from that Biogen conference site where there's been the majority of cases documented in Massachusetts where they came from. I think it's something like 73 cases out of 91 people.
Can be traced back to that conference.
Right. So
get
anyway,
well, Hillary.
Get well, Hillary. You already look better than you did, I can tell, and I appreciate you tuning in as well. And if you do feel like calling in, you could text my cell phone. I know you have it, and Dan French will get back to you on a time that we will welcome your actual report, your individual experience, which we certainly wish you to feel better about that. All right, so that's Hillary King, and hopefully we get a chance to actually talk with her as well. Later on this program, we are also going to be talking with the CEO of Nucleus One out of Maine. His name is Jacques Santucci, and they have a special event planned for Thursday, March 19th. That would be next week. However, not sure if they're still going to have it, and that will probably be the first question we ask Jacques in the next half hour of this program. In this break, we are going to take a break in just a moment. I just want to see what I think. I think in my magic bus. Oh, I know exactly what we have planned, and that will be the opening of the new Rev Clinics dispensary on Mass Ave in Cambridge in Central Square. And Rev Clinics is one of the top medical dispensaries in the Massachusetts area. They now have 3 locations, 2 in Cambridge, and we all know that they are also in some kind of dispute, let's just say, with the City of Cambridge Council. And I know, David, you've been following that as well. I don't need you to go into it now because we've got about under a minute to go until we have our break, our first break. But on the other side, we'll have Jacques Santucci on the line. And then at the top of the hour, we'll have Dr. Jordan Kobritz. Jordan Tischler. Jordan Kobritz. If Steve Buckley's out there, he's going to know who Jordan Kobritz is.
I hope Steve's watching.
I hope he's watching, too. I don't kind of see him here, but I know he is. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have more of We Talk Live with Kurt Dalton and Jimmy Young. Don't go away. Revolutionary Clinics continues to battle the City Council of Cambridge over their right to apply for an adult use license. Yet, those proceedings didn't interfere with the expansion and the opening of Rev Clinic's 3rd medicinal dispensary. This one is right in the middle of Central Square in Cambridge on Mass Ave.
It is just so exciting to finally be open 6 months after where we thought we'd be, but we're here, we're in Cambridge, we're in Central Square. I'm really excited.
How important, as the educational director, is it to educate the public about some of the benefits of this plant medicine?
Oh, it has to start with education. That's what I believe. I really came to the cannabis industry about 2.5 years ago thinking I knew something about cannabis, and the truth is I knew less than nothing. I think so many people approach cannabis as they have a very set idea of what it is, who uses it, what it's for. The thing I love most about my job is I've gotten to meet every kind of person, every walk of life, every political background, every socioeconomic status, all united by this appreciation for one thing, cannabis. And in the medical space, there's just that there's one way to consume cannabis, and it's smoking.
It's not.
It's not. It's absolutely not. So I vape a lot. It's sort of a joke. Like, people have this idea of people who walk down the street and like blow big clouds. It's not what I'm about, as we say in the medical cannabis industry. So the THC is in that cloud. So when you exhale, anyway, I love to vape. It's a lot softer on my lungs. I don't like to cough, but there's also edible consumption methods. There's topicals for people who want to rub something on their skin. There's every kind of product out there for every kind of customer.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to We Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Kurt Dalton with Cannabis.net.
And
David Rabinovitz
from
New Can Group.
There you go. That's the idea, guys, is you introduce yourself every time. It's just one of those things that we like to do here on this show. Welcome back to the program. You know, we are right in the middle of an unprecedented situation in this country with the coronavirus. I cannot believe that all the major sporting leagues and events like the NCAA's March Madness have canceled, and I'm not quite sure what that meant, Dan, just so you know. Does that mean I have Jacques? Is that what you're telling me? Yes. Okay, good. All right, well, let's go. Let's go to the phones. Hello, Jacques Santucci from Nucleus One. How are you, sir?
Good. I think that's what he was telling you, that I'm on the phone and I'm waiting for you.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you waiting, and I appreciate you joining our program with David Rabinovitz, who you were supposed to meet with, I guess, at NCIA, Kurt Dalton, and myself.
Yes.
The first question I have to ask you, Jacques, is you are planning an event Thursday, March 19th in Maine to talk about the emerging Maine market. Is that event still scheduled?
It sounds like I'm on the regular media, right? Isn't that what everybody's talking about these days? Are you going to do it? Are you not going to do it?
Right. I had to ask the question.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually doing a blog post, a video post a few days ago about creating emergency plans and contingency plans based on coronavirus and how a business can actually survive, and that applies for the cannabis industry, and because I think everybody's going to get hurt one way or the other, hopefully not physically, but business-wise, we're all going to feel the impact in the next few weeks. That said, as it relates to our event, I really don't have the answer just yet. It's a small event, small being, less than 100 people. And, so we're having phone calls with the speakers. We're going to probably make a decision tomorrow or Monday. And, it feels like somehow, not canceling will not be politically correct. On the other side, it's probably needed somehow. So the answer is I don't know yet.
Okay, please make sure that you let me know when you finally make that decision, because we are planning on taking the trip up to Maine for that little get-together you have. And you have Eric Gunderson is your keynote speaker, who's the head of the Maine Cannabis Commission, correct?
Yes, correct. And so let me ask you the question. Are you still planning on coming on Thursday?
If the event happens, we'll be there. Is that okay?
Outstanding. That's what I want to hear. I just talked to one of our other speakers, and he said he would come. I'm speaking to Eric Gunderson tomorrow afternoon, and I'll see what's happening with the state of Maine. Hopefully, they won't be restricted on meetings. It doesn't sound like that's the case. So right now we're still on, and we'll make the decision, like I said, probably either tomorrow afternoon or Monday. And of course, I will let you know, and we'll let everybody know through social media and email.
I appreciate that. One of the interesting developments in this coronavirus is the CDC is recommending no large gatherings of people. It's one of the reasons why all the sports leagues have shut down. And of course, everybody has a different definition of what large gathering means. I believe it was anything over 250, and then I heard 500, and then I heard 1,000, and I feel like I'm an auctioneer. What is the attendance? What do you think how many people do you think are coming to your event, Jacques?
Well, right now we have over 60 people coming, and then people are still buying tickets today, plus the speakers. So we're expecting between 60 and 75 people. The goal of that event was to have a small event of people who are interested in learning more about the cannabis industry, learning more about the main market that's coming up, learning more about the awesome speakers that we have. And so we wanted to keep it like at a smaller level, so the networking is there and then the education is there. And we actually are planning another one in New York in June. And at this point, I'm not sure if we can even think about doing it. But we were planning another one, same size, in New York for mid-June.
Gotcha. So the emerging Maine market, where is the state of Maine? I think I know the answer to this question, but where is the state of Maine in the process of opening adult use recreational stores? They're trying to keep the people in Maine, kind of giving them the easier track, I guess, to get a license. What is the state of cannabis in Maine, Jacques?
Yeah, so how about I tell you, too, why we picked the state of Maine. So, I started in the cannabis industry actually 10 years ago this month, and because Maine was one of the first states that had a licensing process in early 2010, and it was the first state for sure on the East Coast, and there were 8 licenses for medical marijuana dispensary and production. And I was part of a group 10 years ago that worked on those licenses, and we were awarded 4 of the 8 official dispensaries and 4 official operations, and we started a company called Wellness Connection of Maine. And so that's where Nucleus One is based. But in the past 10 years, we actually worked outside of the state of Maine, for other clients, and really since 2014. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Hawaii, Ohio. I mean, we worked in a lot of states, and it feels like because the state of Maine is now finally opening to adult use, we are back home, and then we are working with clients in Maine, and because it's a new market that's coming up. 2016, the state allowed through a referendum for adult use. And for a lot of reasons, mostly political, nothing really happened until last year. And so now the state is accepting applications through a little bit like what's happening in Massachusetts, not really on a lottery or award base, but more on a process base where you apply with the state. You get your provisional license either as a retail store or manufacturing, processing, or cultivation. Then you apply at your local town, assuming that they opt in, because all the towns by law were opt out of the program, and they have to decide that they want to opt in. And then once you have your provisional license at the town level, then you can finalize your license at the state level. So the state started to accept their through their process on December 5th, in 2019. And at this point, they have over 100 applications in the process. And then now they starting to give the conditional license in probably in the next few weeks, and then everybody's expecting the first stores to be open, sometime early summer or midsummer.
There you go.
Oh, Jacques, this is Kurt with Cannabis.net. Very familiar with Maine. Spend a lot of time there. It seems Maine just keeps kicking the date down the road. Just to follow up, how confident are you? I think it's June is officially what they're saying. Is this going to happen in June, or are we going to see September? Is there going to be another delay? Like, what do you feel? Is this really going to happen, or are we going to kind of keep kicking it down the road?
Yeah, so it's a good question. That's a good question. So initially, the date was March, and it actually came from a journalist in Maine that mentioned March a few months ago. But when I was talking to my contact at the state, they were pretty sure that it would never happen in March because they would not have the time to process the applications, and the towns would not be ready. And so now I am pretty confident that sometime in June or July, some stores will be ready to open because they already applied. They have 90 days to kind of complete the application at the state level. The towns are processing applications. So, December plus 3, your February, March plus 2 or 3 more months. I think we can assume that June, July could be the month where we see the first operations. That said, I don't think we can confirm it because there's so many things that need to happen before those stores are ready. On top of the application from the state, on top of the application from the license from the town, they also have to get their operation going, and so that might be a little bit later.
So if you were a gambling man, what would the date be that you would say the first recreational store will be open in Maine?
Is there an office pool?
Yeah,
exactly. I would say the week before the 4th of July.
I was just going to say around the Maine 4th of July is big, so yep.
That's right. I've been to plenty of 4th of Julys in Maine. In fact, Jacques, let me ask you a question from a financial perspective. Kurt is far more tuned into this scene than I am as far as the financials go, as is David. But is it still a good investment to get involved with cannabis at either the retail level, or is it still almost better to be on the ancillary side of the business trying to sell into the cannabis industry?
So the first question should be, is it still a good investment to invest in cannabis, period? Yep. And at that point, my background is around, business management and creating opportunities for business owners. And that's the first question. And then we have to ask ourselves, what is a good investment? So I think what was the so-called good investment in cannabis was really 4 or 5 years ago when the regulations were not slowing down the business side. I think at this point, between compliance and then the growth of the industry and the fact that the prices are coming down and things like this, it's becoming less of the huge investment that people were dreaming of 4 or 5 years ago. But that said, I think it's still a good investment because there's a lot of opportunities. We are just in the infancy of the industry. There's so many things that need to be done in every state. Most states are opening. So I think it's still a good place to invest. But then the next question is, how do you invest and where do you invest? And I think what we've seen is too many people investing in projects that were not really well planned. And where cannabis was the hype, but really it's a business like any other industry, and some of those projects probably were missing a little bit of a realistic expectation. But for the projects that are well done and well planned out with a good team, with a good business model, then there's a lot of good opportunities. And then to your question, where to go, I think cultivation is and processing is very specific, and unless somebody knows what they're doing and they have something different that they can make a difference in the market, it's a much more difficult investment because you have to produce at a lower cost and a higher quality. That means that the risk is really on that part of the industry. I think retail can be a good investment if there's something particular on the customer experience, on the quality and the type of product, and obviously location, because retail is really about location. And I think in some states, just selling cannabis is probably not the unique thing to do. You need to have more than cannabis. But I would agree with you, Jimmy, that ancillary services is, I think, the next thing that's happening for the cannabis industry. There's so many opportunities that as for business on things that are not plant touching, but are providing services, software, new equipment, customer experience, testing. There's so many new things that need to happen there.
Yeah, I have always said invest in a law firm, to be honest with you, Jacques, because I think they're going to win no matter what. David, I think you got a question for him.
Well, no, I think Kurt wanted me to weigh in on that. I kind of agree with a lot of what he's saying. I think it's a great place to invest, but I think on the private side, I think the wind is way out of the public companies. And I happen to agree that retail is really where it's at. Retail, you have the lowest investment, and you are the gateway to the consumer. I think the biggest risk, as I've said several times, is on the cultivation end. I mean, I think some of these cultivation facilities are going to end up in the funeral industry.
Wow, and Jacques, in Maine, I don't know if Jimmy even saw the news this week. They're part of the the appropriations is to create a task force. Is it in Maine with the 4 members to go after the black market using the tax revenue? How do you guys feel about that? Obviously, being a licensed producer, you must like that, but it's getting a lot of blowback from people as far as using the actual tax revenue to create a task force, basically a drug task force to go after the black market in Maine.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I think the risk for the industry is the black market, the illicit market. So Nucleus One is a consulting firm, and we help people with their application and really get their plan in place and have a great expectation, start the operation. We're also now advising potential investors and through due diligence, and we're starting to get some calls about actually turning around some licenses, people that are getting in trouble. But the theme around all this is really what is the risk, and beside the inner risk of each company where the team cannot execute or the business plan is not there, really it's the illegal market. And because how can you compete when you have to pay taxes and keep quality and improve your customer experience or your product, where you're competing with people who already have a different product and not paying taxes? So I agree that if some of the taxes from the cannabis industry, from the legal cannabis industry, can be allocated to have better compliance enforcement, and then help the regulated operators to be stronger than the illegal market, I think it's fantastic.
And now wellness has a great reputation, for those that don't know, in Maine. You have 4 locations. As you said, retail is location.
Yeah.
Tell us where your locations are, how people can find you, either online or in person. Tell us about wellness and how to get there.
So I started wellness. I'm one of the founders of Wellness Connection, but actually I have not been involved with wellness for the past couple of years because I actually focused on other parts of the industry. One being Nucleus One consulting and helping other operators, and I also started a software company. Looking at data and cost and a system of engagement for the industry. But that said, I know a lot about Wellness Connection and of Maine, which I'm glad you said has a good reputation. So Wellness has 4 locations: one in Portland, one in South Portland, and then one in Gardner, which is just outside of Augusta, and one in Brewer, just outside of Bangor.
And I've been to all of those communities back in the day, I just want to say, because I consider Maine to be my second home state, even though at one point Massachusetts and Maine were the same state. Right, Jacques?
Yeah.
Terrific. Go ahead.
And with the adult use coming in Maine, that's going to change a lot. You can think that for those of you who haven't been to downtown Portland or the Old Port, you might not see it, but you can think that within 6 months maybe or 9 months there'll be a few stores downtown Portland. So that means that the quaint Maine Old Port will be totally different with maybe 10 or 20 stores downtown. So that's going to be an interesting change, too.
Right next to the Elevation Burger. That's a good location.
Well, it's also around the corner from the Old Port Tavern, which I have a lot of memories that I can remember there anyway. But Jacques Santucci, thank you so much from Nucleus One. You can find out more about the emerging State of Maine event on your Nucleus One website, yes?
Yes, correct. Nucleus-one.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And, we are on the web. So reach out and we can either see you next Thursday if nothing changes. Otherwise, we can chat through the web.
You got it. All right, Jacques Santucci from Nucleus-1, that's ONE.com, and we will hopefully get a chance to see you on Thursday.
Hope so.
Yes.
You know, look, I love people from Maine. I just want to say my son was actually born in Portland, Maine, just for the record.
Oh, he's one of those guys. All right.
What does that mean? We left 2 years
Double,
later.
2 states, you know. He's a transplant to Mass.
Yeah, well, I was born in Newark, New Jersey.
He's a birther from Maine.
Yeah, and I got out of Newark, New Jersey real fast.
But he's right. Maine, you know, what people don't know is that it's a very poor state when you get off the oceans and the lakes. So the black market is fierce because the extra money that an illicit market or non-licensed person will grow, it means a lot. It's poor like the state of Mississippi. And that's why he talked about that the black market, there's a lot of black market up there. And if you look on a map, Maine is a huge green forest next to another big green forest called Canada. A lot of spaces to grow, and it's fierce.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, there's some comparison, I guess, with Humboldt County, California,
in a way,
because you got so much land, you certainly can't police all that land, that entire illicit market. So it's a challenge. But I will say that the growers of Maine have a lot of experience in this space. Let's just say,
and there's definitely Maine in general is kind of a granola state. I mean that in a very good way. So the product on the black market tends to be very clean if you're comparing it to another state. Because that's just how the people are. They would never consider using certain pesticides and certain things. You're going to get a good product. It's really fierce in Maine to go against an illicit market compared to a licensed.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
up
right.
in Maine. I know how to
get
do
there
that
from here.
Yes, you can. Okay. All right. So that was Jacques Santucci, and it's interesting. He didn't mention the fact that he's married to Patricia Rossi, who is one of the most powerful women in cannabis, and is now the acting CEO of Wellness Connection.
Okay, I did not know that. David, do you think Maine Social Equity, Economic Empowerment, they have a program that's up yet, or is that?
I have not followed it up
there.
I know that, in fact, I know some of the people from Massachusetts who got frustrated have headed up to Maine to see if they can get a license.
Yeah, I've heard that too. So there you go.
You know, and again, they're just trying to start a business in a new industry, and there's so many levels of
the right
regulation.
way, legally, like not trying to do the illicit.
Exactly right. And you know, we all recognize that the illicit market certainly survived and thrived for quite a long time, but now that we have turned that page towards legality, decriminalization, descheduling, almost maybe could be, you still really don't know where this is going to go. And one of the things that I found really fascinating about talking to all these people in this space is, while we could sit here and talk about the THC-based cannabis sativas, but hemp as an industry they're just starting to scratch the surface using hemp. And there's so many more applications to hemp than the more well-known, if you will, commodity of cannabis sativa with THC. David, as someone who looks at markets all the time and has your finger on the pulse of a lot of businesses, bet you didn't know that, by the way. You know, where do you think hemp is going to be in 10 years in comparison to the legal cannabis THC industry business?
I think what you're going to find in 10 years, the legal THC market is, relatively speaking, going to be small, right? Because you're talking about the recreational side of marijuana. That doesn't include the pharmaceutical side. It doesn't include a whole bunch of other areas, right? Everybody's focused on the rec side of it, but a lot of the new products are going to come out in pharmaceuticals, wellness, all that sort of thing. And then that's going to be dwarfed by hemp, because what you're looking at for marijuana is the oil that comes out of the plant, one way or the other. You're trying to smoke it, vaporize it, put it into foods, but take it in. With hemp, you've got the fiber that can be mixed with concrete to make hempcrete. You can convert it into basically a plastic. There are auto parts that can be made out of hemp.
Clothing, Luxury Leaf.
Right.
One of our friends, Luxury Leaf, is and I hope one day we'll actually have a hemp T-shirt.
Yep. Become a MassCan member, and you can get a hemp MassCan T-shirt as part of your initial membership package.
Oh, I love that.
So there's all sorts of things hemp can do.
And that plays right into hopefully one of our callers a little later, if he gets off his plane, is raising $150 million for industrial hemp and going right after this paint. I just discussed it earlier today with him. Hemp paint, I guess it was a thing we had 50, 60 years ago, and he's going to go all in on the industrial uses of hemp, but we don't know if he'll be off the plane in time to call in. So.
And why don't you tell us
Bruce,
who he is?
We have our friend Bruce from Ottawa. Bruce from Ottawa coming, hopefully
Bruce
calling
Linton.
in later. So
Bruce Linton, the former CEO of Canopy Growth, and the guy who I think a lot of people in the industry have looked at as one of the true heroes, an entrepreneur of the year, someone who built a small company into a billion-dollar company, right?
Yeah, certainly a pioneer, and also raising, like I said, $150 million for a hemp project. Just had his first ever mushrooms, medical mushrooms go public. Psilocybin mind medicine just went public last week. So busy guy, got some things going on. So.
Yeah, he always does, right? And the thing that I will tell you this, meeting Bruce was really a lot of fun. And he is just a regular guy. I mean, there really isn't, he doesn't exude, that Harvard PhD kind of, Dr. Jordan Tischler's calling in at 9 o'clock.
Except him, he's good.
Yeah, he's good.
We like him.
Right, we like Jordan. But, he's just a regular guy. And maybe that is the secret to his success.
Yep, let's hope so. Well, hopefully he'll get out. He's on a plane right now, but he said he's going to call in when he lands, and hopefully we're still on the air. So
there you go. So this is Weed Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young, along with Kurt Dalton and David Rabinovitz in studio. We are live streaming on Facebook. I'm actually monitoring it and doing some likes and things like that. I have absolutely no idea what that means, but I'm doing it anyway. Guys, do you see anything happening in the in this world of cannabis now? Is the stigma are we finally seeing a movement that people are starting to accept this a little bit more? Just out off the top of your head.
Absolutely. Now I follow a lot of the stories in the media, and what I've been amazed with over the past 3 weeks are stories about communities in Massachusetts that are now rethinking their bans on marijuana. And I think what it comes down to is they look at communities like Northampton that are raking in a ton of money and doing a lot of good with it, and yet the sky hasn't fallen. The people haven't all become drug users. The town hasn't been overrun by wackos coming in to buy pot. The largest growing segment of the marijuana market is the 55 and up market. So now the communities are realizing that it's not going to destroy their towns. The towns that banned it are starting to take another look at it.
Sure, because they want a piece of the pie too.
I'll play the devil's advocate there. Like you said, the money coming in is making people rethink it. I don't know how much is goodwill and good intention compared to, wait, how much did my neighbor town just take in taxes? Like, wait a minute. So
Right, and we also recognize that the state, I don't want to say they've misappropriated the tax revenue, but I do know that there is some question on whether or not that tax revenue that they have picked up is going to the right place. Right, David?
That's right. That's true.
And again, another reason to be embarrassed by what is going on amongst the regulators in this space. So, again, coming up in the next half hour, we will talk with another doctor, Dr. Jordan Tischler of Inhale MD, and we'll have plenty more talk about the cannabis sativa plant, its magical uses, and I'm even going to get into some of the gadgets and gizmos that are out there, like this thing right here. I'm going to hold it up because I thought it was called a bong condom, but no, it's a mouthpiece, right?
Right, yes.
What the hell do I know? We'll have more of this show.
Bong condom,
bong, whatever.
Mouthpiece.
We'll have more in a minute. Don't go away. Hey, you guys, first thing I got to start with is congratulations. The needle has moved in Washington, D.C., and you guys have been behind that whole process. Getting not only the House Judiciary Committee, but also the U.S. House to move that Safe Banking Act and putting the pressure on the Republican Senate. Congratulations on the great year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It was actually, I think it was the Financial Services Committee. It originally moved out of committee and then eventually went to the House floor. But 2019 was definitely a monumental year for our industry, being able to get that legislative victory, both at the committee level and then obviously at the House level. Now the pivot is obviously towards the Senate in 2020, which we're going to be working really hard on. Been working on the Safe Banking Act since for at least 6 years now. So to finally get that House victory is a big deal. But now we got to turn up and crank up the heat on the committees in Congress, and then obviously all of the other senators as well.
Can you describe what it must be like in the Capitol, in the halls of the Capitol building, or walking around D.C. knowing that the Republicans and the Democrats really just don't like each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's telling that a lot of the issues that we have now and the challenges we have have less to do with cannabis being controversial as it used to be, and more to do with just the partisan rancor and the general dysfunction of Congress, which is frustrating to everybody in the country. So, but it's. It was great to see that, for example, the Safe Banking Act passed the House of Representatives with an overwhelming bipartisan vote on
313 to
103 to 2,
103?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, overwhelming bipartisan vote. We had almost 100 Republicans, and that was the day that Nancy Pelosi announced that they were going to launch an impeachment inquiry.
Exactly. I totally have been following this, so I know, and I tell you, because I got to know you. I mean, I think of you in the trenches, and imagine what's going on down there. So now it's in the Senate's hands. Is the Senate going to move on this before November?
Well, I mean, I think we have a shot at it. I can't guarantee anything.
You can't guarantee anything in Washington, D.C.,
but I think that if it gets a vote in the committee and out to the floor, I'm pretty confident that it has the votes to pass. But that's still, that's the if, is getting through Senator Crapo's banking committee, and so we're working hard every day to try to make that happen.
Okay, that was two of the principals of the NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association. You saw Aaron Smith, who is one of the founders of the NCIA, and you saw Calico Castile, who is in charge of business development and partnerships for the NCIA. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Weed Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Kurt Dalton, the founder of Cannabis.net.
And I'm David Rabinovitz, a happy guest and happy to be here.
And so happy that you filled in for some of the others that were supposed to be here, but appreciate that, David. You're a good friend, and I also know you like the opportunity to come out and just talk about this stuff, because, where else in the greater Boston area, or even in this country, Kurt, right, can you have an open line to have a talk show? And I know that I gave it out before. It's 617-544
7307.
7307.
John Hanna.
Exactly right.
Yep.
And you could give us a call, and we might even put you on the air with us here on We Talk Live. In just a matter of minutes or so, we will be talking with Dr. Jordan Tischler. And, of course, we are all in on the coronavirus. We understand how debilitating that this has been, not just to the individuals who have been stricken by this, but also to the stock market, to the businesses, to the whole idea of how easily a germ can be transferred and transmitted to other people. David, what's your impressions of what's been going on with this coronavirus? Has the media fed this too much?
I don't think so, Jimmy. Actually, I think what's really going to save us are the big companies that have told people to stay home. My prediction is mid-April, we're going to be out of the woods with this. And I think if the government does a few things and doesn't mess up a few other things, the economy will pick right back up. And this will hopefully only be a blip versus leading us down into a recession.
I remember listening to you guys in the other room talking about how this could end up being a blessing in disguise for business in the area, because it's certainly impacted the traffic patterns, right?
Well, I think we were talking about something a little bit different. We were talking about the fact that a lot of companies are telling the people to stay home and work from home. And then this is a Zoom Communications.
Yep.
Their stock is going through the roof as a result of this, because they've got the ability to commute by your computer. And I think when more people get comfortable with that, more people are going to stay home. Most of the schools have closed. My wife is a professor at one of the local colleges, teaches at another university, and they're all going to online learning right now. They don't want the students in the schools.
Right. I teach at Emerson, and I had my last in-person class this past Wednesday. We will be going back online on March 23rd. But speaking of online, on our phone line is an old friend and a good friend, Dr. Jordan Tischler. Dr. Tischler, welcome to We Talk Live again with Jimmy Young, Kurt Dalton, and David Rabinovitz.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. So what is your take on what is going on with the coronavirus in this country right now? Not just in this country, but around the world. And is there a role for cannabis to play either in a preventive situation or a relief situation?
Well, I think things have gotten very out of hand very quickly. I think that the public health efforts are well underway and are definitely going to help ameliorate this, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's just the nature of these things. I was just reading moments ago that one of the chief medical officers in an area of Italy has died of coronavirus. Wow. So he was 67, which makes him not very old, but certainly not a young man. And the point is that this virus can be harmful to people who are not necessarily all that high risk.
Right. Right. Well,
so, it's scary.
Right.
They closed my school system, the school system my kid's in. I think that was a good decision. It leaves us wondering what the heck we're going to do with her now, but
that is a big challenge for parents. Parents, a lot of people think parenting is all joy. It is the toughest job any of us have ever had. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And also,
none of us would turn it down either, though. I don't think.
Exactly. Well, once you're in it to win it. You're in it for the whole experience.
The duration. Yep.
That's right. And I might say that the in-law side of things on my family added a new member to our family today. We had a new nephew for my brother-in-law Jerry down in Mahwah, New Jersey, and I want to congratulate Jessica and Jose and that group. I might as well do that, and everybody else in the Applestein clan, as it were. But, Jordan, let's get back to the use of cannabis as a medicine, because I know that is something that you really are building your whole practice around now, or at least a part of your practice around now. Where are we finding, has it leveled off? Are you finding you're still teaching people about the endocannabinoid system? Where are we in the education of the public towards cannabis at this point?
I think we're just at the beginning of all of that. I think that, oftentimes we operate in circles where the people around us have a fairly good knowledge of the endocannabinoid system, at least at the lay level, perhaps not, quite at the scientific level. And I think that gives us a certain bubble in which we exist. That we don't really realize just how much the real mainstream has no idea about that. And so, as you mentioned, my practice is exclusively around taking care of people using cannabis as a medicine now. And really the challenge for me, and the one that we're really working very hard to meet, is, how do we get out to the people for whom this would never even cross their mind? And so there's a whole process of reaching out through support groups and senior centers, et cetera, as well as obviously trying to educate my physician colleagues so that they are the ones who are saying, well, you've got chemotherapy coming up. You should go see Dr. Tischler first so that he can get you started on a regimen that's going to help you, rise to the challenge more successfully. So I think there's a lot to be done there.
Jordan, this is Kurt from Cannabis.net. When people feel they're getting sick with a cold, they tend to, pound orange juice and say vitamin C. With the THC's antiviral properties, including THCA, is there any benefit for someone to be using cannabis for any virus, let alone the coronavirus? Could it be a supplement, like a vitamin? Would it help with viral conditions in the body to use cannabis at this stage for what's going on in the world?
I'd love to say yes, but our best evidence at the moment suggests no. Unfortunately, we have this idea that cannabinoids can be mildly immunosuppressive, which on the one hand you could think would make things worse, but we haven't seen that. On the other hand, you could think that maybe it would help suppress some of the damage that the virus is causing, but we haven't seen that either. And in fact, the first time I was asked this question about whether cannabis could be helpful for viral infection, first of all, I was like, oh, that's a very interesting idea. But I had, in fact, only an hour or so earlier read a study that had come out that morning in which it wasn't coronavirus that they were looking at, but they were looking at hepatitis C virus and HIV, and whether cannabis users had a decrease in transmission. And unfortunately, the answer there was no. So
I think that, as you're getting at, like the idea of it being sort of a protective, I'm afraid that one doesn't seem to be panning out at the moment.
You're striking out here, Kurt.
I was going to say, so if you had a patient that said, hey, he called you up, or she did, and said, hey, I'm using cannabis regularly, I'm worried about corona, should I get off it, should I stay on it? Kind of what would you say to that person?
That's a very good question. I would say, look, as long as you're well, I think you can keep doing what you're doing. The question becomes, if you're sick, right? Maybe you've got a cold, the flu, an asthma flare, or maybe you think you've got coronavirus. At that point, what should you be doing? And aside from calling the medical authorities, if you're that sick, I think that you probably shouldn't be inhaling this stuff. We've certainly seen some data that suggests for asthmatics that the THC can be helpful, but we really don't know whether that applies to sort of an infectious process. And of course, for many people, when we talk about inhaling, they're thinking about smoking more so than what I advocate for, which is vaporization of whole flower. And certainly the smoke with all of its particulate matter, et cetera, is probably not something that you want to introduce into the lungs that are otherwise infected or unhappy. One of you guys had mentioned symptom relief, right? I think that's a huge place where cannabis can be helpful. Perhaps, again, under those circumstances, we don't want to think about inhalation, but something oral like an edible can certainly be helpful if you're feeling lousy. One just has to sort of start to draw a line between I feel lousy because I have the flu of some sort and actually have symptoms that are consistent with coronavirus where, you'd want to seek medical attention pretty quickly. So things like high fever and actual shortness of breath are things that you should be worried about.
Speaking of worried, this just in, as they say in the old news world, Donovan Mitchell, a Utah Jazz star who plays with Rudy, right? Tested positive for coronavirus, and he was at Encore Boston last week. He was in town. So, it's here now, and it's amazing how easily things like this can be transmitted once it gets out. Jordan, are we ever going to find an anecdote for this? I know they're working on this, but, are we going to have a vaccine? Are we going to?
Sure.
We are at some point, right?
Yes, the time course, and I think we're all very worried, and we'd like it to be over, and it's a big imposition, and all those things are true. But let us remember that we've been at this in the U.S. really for just a short number of weeks, and these things definitely take time. There are not one but 3 companies that I'm aware of, and probably there are many more that are working on vaccines at the moment. But you have to figure out how to make it, then you have to test it to make sure it doesn't cause more damage than good. So I think that, a vaccine will happen, but it's going to be, 12 months or something like that. And that's very rapid for the development of any kind of medication. I think it's, this is going to be a bad blip, but it's going to be a blip. There are things we don't know about the coronavirus or COVID-19 in particular. It may be that there's only one of them, right? In which case, once we all develop an immunity, either through having gotten it and survived it, or from this vaccine, then, it just becomes kind of like the chickenpox virus in the sense that it's kind of out there and it doesn't cause a lot of damage. On the other hand, it is a coronavirus like influenza, so it may, in fact, have the ability to mutate a lot. And the reason we get influenza vaccines every year is because every year the strain changes enough that it can elude the immunity that we got from last year. And so everybody is in the business of predicting what those changes will be and developing a vaccine against what they think is coming. So some years they're right, some years they're less right. So it's possible that the COVID-19 could behave like that, in which case, we're going to have to develop vaccines on a regular basis and develop some public health techniques around anticipating what's coming. So there's so much to
digest.
That remains to be seen,
know? Yep, absolutely.
So we have some school districts here in Mass that are doing a 2-week break. Some have gone up to 4 or 5 weeks. Some are doing the next 4 days, and then we'll let you know. What would be your opinion on the have everybody not get in big groups? Timing element.
I think that's huge. The expression that's come out is social distancing. I kind of find that term is a little bit dysphoric, right? I mean, social distancing is don't touch me kind of thing. I think that's unfortunate. But the reality here is that what we need is the way this is transmitted is people getting together and somebody in the group passes it to the next person. It's actually not a particularly infectious virus compared to many others, but it's infectious enough that if we all keep getting together, then, one person spreads it to another person, and then it just kind of multiplies. So closing large social gatherings is exactly the right thing to do. And, the last major pandemic, which was the influenza pandemic of 1918, we have data from back then that showed that the areas of the country that rapidly shut their school systems did better, had fewer infections and fewer deaths than the areas that kind of poo-pooed that and tried to have life as normal. So as much as we would like to kind of say, it's no big deal, it's just kind of another flu and let's ignore it and life as usual, turns out that isn't the best approach. And all these school shuttings or closing Broadway as we saw today, all of that is exactly the right thing to do.
And so you're supporting all the leagues shutting down, Broadway shutting down, schools shutting down, college kids being sent home. All of these things are the only way to handle something like this and to get ahead of it, I guess, is the way to look at it, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And, but at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that it comes with a cost, right? I mean, we're looking at a major upheaval to our economy, and that's not just to the billionaires. It's to the people, the kids who aren't going to get fed at school, although, frankly, they could get fed at home by the school system. But, the point is, if you're working 3 jobs to make ends meet, it's going to become that much more difficult. Your life is that much more high risk if you're taking public transportation to get to those jobs. And some of those jobs are probably not going to survive because we know that small businesses are going to be hit the hardest. So, a lot of what happens there, frankly, is going to depend upon what our federal government does to try and protect us from it. We have to protect against the virus. We also have to protect against the economic ramifications of the protections against the virus. I think there's a lot to be written. I don't unfortunately have a ton of faith in the current administration to
yes.
I'm trying to be vaguely politic about this, but
you can't. It's a nightmare. Let's cut right to at least everybody knows how liberal I am, and oh my God, that's such a nasty word these days. But bottom line is you need leadership at a time like this, and we just don't have it. And that is the biggest. To me, that's the biggest prerequisite to be a president of the free world, if you will, and we just don't have it. But I do want to go back to one more thing that you said, and I want to see if we can nail this down a little bit. You mentioned large gatherings. We've heard the definition of what large is. I think the CDC put it out there as 250, but I've also heard 500. I've also heard 1,000. In your feelings, in your certainly educated opinion, what is a large gathering, Dr. Tischler?
Well, you know what? So the point is that you ask exactly the right question, and it depends on which day you ask the question and of whom you ask the question. Certainly, they started out with a sort of 250, and then it went down to 100. And I think that the most stringent that I've heard from any agency at this point is 25. Now, my mom, who's 80-something, hi, Mom, she asked me today, what about her book club, which are a bunch of all 80-something-year-old retired physicians who get together to chat about books. And there are a whopping 8 of them in that group. And so, you get 2 doctors in a room, you get 3 opinions, right? So I said, it's 8 people, we need to maintain some mental health, keep a little bit of distance, wash your hands, all of those sorts of things, but go ahead and have book club. And I actually then said, maybe you want to do it in Zoom, or some tele program, because it's book club.
Doc's
She
going
also
up.
plays a quartet, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little harder to do quartet by telecommuting. But the point was, I said, I think you should do it. And my wife, who is a physician and a physician executive for a health plan, where all they've been doing for the last several weeks is trying to work on how to handle this for their members. She said, no, don't do it. It's not an acceptable risk. So there you go. You have two completely different points of view on the same set of facts, and there is no way to know exactly what the right answer is. So at some point, either individually or as an administrative group, you just kind of have to draw a line in the sand and hope you're in the right place.
Well, all right. You guys got anything else for the doctor before we say goodnight to him?
That was great.
I have something I'd like to bring up, if
Sure.
I may.
Knock yourself out. Your time. Your
Well,
dime.
we sort of touched on this at the beginning and never really got to it, which was, what can we do to protect ourselves from the coronavirus, and in particular as cannabis users. So we talked about the social distancing. We talked about washing your hands and not shaking hands. I'm not shaking hands with my patients anymore. We're doing fist bumps or elbow bumps or whatever, which frankly is very hard for me to remember to do that because we're all so ingrained to stick out our hands. But we're trying. And there's Purell everywhere. But let's think about what are the things that uniquely cannabis user kind of behaviors? Well, it's getting together in large groups and standing around and smoking weed, right?
Right.
Don't do that.
Right.
Just don't do it. Don't get together with a group. Don't share the bowl. Don't share the joint. Don't share the blunts. You shouldn't smoke a blunt anyway. And tobacco is poison. But those are the things that we have to kind of bring into the cannabis using culture that kind of go above and beyond what's being messaged to the general population.
Right.
So those are my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and that's why I like this Weedjit product, okay? Because you can have personalized joint sharing, if you will, because you could just take that out, hand it to somebody else. He or she puts it back onto their own filter right here.
This is the little glass tip we're talking about?
No, it's a disposable filter on the end and a silicone filter in the middle, and it's part of the Weedjit.
Yes.
Here's the maze pipe right here, and of course, we're trying to push these things. And if you use Weed Talk 2020 online and order one of these, you can actually save some money. So personalized and individual usage of and disposal of instead of sharing the joint. So that's what we're looking for here, and that's what I think they provide.
I think those are great little devices. I just would worry that the distance between you and your smoking buddy might be short enough, shall we say, that you could transmit one to the other, having nothing to do with the Weedjit, but just simply through the contact.
Right.
So I think as much as cannabis aficionados tend to be very friendly, social animals, I think this might be the time to hunker down with your favorite indica and watch television or
read a book
on Facebook or whatever. Read a book. That was on my list.
Yeah,
I'd be the Lonely Stoner.
That's right. The Lonely Stoner.
The Lonely Stoner with Netflix.
That's it. That's it. The Lonely Stoner. We got it. Watch Disjointed.
That's right. Oh boy, here we go. All right, Dr. Jordan Tischler, again, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. I know it was on short notice, and you've always been there. You've always been there for me whenever I've asked, and I do appreciate that.
It's a pleasure.
All right.
Take care, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That is
Bye-bye.
Dr. Jordan Tischler. Inhale MD is where you can find him. He's got an office in Brookline, I believe also in Cambridge. So that's where you can find him. And if you have any questions at all about using cannabis, how to use cannabis, how to protect yourself from the coronavirus, and also enjoy one of your favorite products, perhaps, I think you got some good tips there as far as how to protect yourself. But again, it goes back to washing your hands, keeping distance socially from others. Try not to handshake. I agree with Dr. Tischler in that it's very difficult, even for me, somebody who's outgoing as I am. I'm always extending my hand to people, and I washed it many times now, so at least I feel confident that I'm not transmitting anything, nor do I have any of the symptoms of that coronavirus. And I think in the next half hour, we're actually going to talk to one of our friends, Hillary King, who has been in bed with the flu over the last few days, and as far as we know, she does not have the coronavirus, but just another bad virus. And
we're going to ask her about using cannabis. I'm asking.
You can ask.
Is she using it for a virus? Does it help, hurt? How's she feel?
You're really looking for somebody to say yes.
I got somebody to step up here and tell me THCA is working for him, and I feel great during this flu. So.
We need somebody to call in who will tell Kurt eating edibles all day long is good.
It's absolutely mandatory. CDC has recommended it, and everybody should get to their legal dispensary and get tested products.
Licensed, tested, legal products. Exactly. But isn't the whole point, isn't what we know about the endocannabinoid system, what we've learned, is that it enhances the immune system. It balances our nerve transmitters. Neuron 1, neuron 2. I need a scientist. One of my none of the scientists I reached out to were willing to come on tonight to talk. I'm sure they were just afraid of saying the wrong thing or liability or whatever. But because the knowledge base right now, even in the scientific community, is small about what's going on. But I mean, here's a simple concept. I'm going to throw it out there again, where you can actually have a double filter situation with your pre-roll. And you can certainly consume it by yourself if you want. It's as simple as that. And that is supposed to enhance your immune system, which is designed to fight off viruses like this.
We had one doctor say not enough research, and one doctor say there's studies that show immune system strengthening, and then there's immune system repression. There's just not enough research. Welcome to a Schedule I drug that we can't research, and we should go to Israel and ask, because they probably know.
That's right, and they've shut down Israel, too.
Yeah.
They've shut down the borders of Israel.
World War Z, here we go.
That's right, and you know what? I can't say that, but I'd really like to, but I'm not going to. What's happened in Italy is pretty amazing. When you think about I think it was 2 weeks ago, they had something like 230 cases, and in 2 weeks, they had 10,000.
Right. Geometric progression, right?
What are they doing in Italy that they aren't doing in other countries? I mean, they're not shutting down their schools? Are they shutting down they did shut down Serie A, I believe, the soccer league in Italy. But, I mean, isn't that the first step? That's obviously what we've done here in the United States.
Well, here's what they have. They've got something very different than what we have. They have test kits.
Aha.
If you don't test it, you can't tell.
Right.
Right?
Right. And we have a shortage of test kits in this country right now, and that again.
So I heard one of the professionals on TV yesterday say our numbers are skewed because we're looking at how many cases there are, but we're only testing the people that are sick.
Yep.
Right.
And if you don't test a wider population, you can't really get your arms around it.
Right.
And they're talking about you got like 5 days when it's getting together in your body, and you're very you can pass it on. Right.
No, and it's asymptomatic. That is probably the biggest challenge right now in our world, is that you could be walking around with it for a couple of days, if not a week, and infecting all the people you're shaking hands with and saying hello to. So it's a challenge. It's just unprecedented in my lifetime, guys. I don't know if any of you, were you around for the swine flu? That was a pretty big deal too, right? Quite a few people passed from that.
What about the Spanish one? How was that on you?
I'm generally healthy.
1800s.
My
1800s. He was not around the 1800s. Neither was I for that.
Check the birth certificate there, Jimmy.
I have checked.
Hey, we got to go to commercial.
It says Baby Boy Young, Beth Israel Hospital, Newark, New Jersey. We got to take a commercial. On the other side, we're going to come back, and we are going to talk with Hillary, who we hope is feeling a little bit better
She'll tell me to do edibles. Come on, Hillary.
We'll be back with more. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Ben Shower, New England rep for Salient Video Management Systems. Let me tell you what makes us different in the security space. We're your trusted advisors for all your security needs. I know how complicated the regulations are in cannabis, and working with Salient Systems will be the polar opposite of that. I give free consultations, and we'll walk you through every step of the process so that you can get what you need at the price you can afford. We're robust, we're simple and scalable. We're Salient Systems, your solutions to all your security needs. Please contact me at the information below, and I'm looking forward to being your trusted advisor.
The human eye really can't tell the difference between 1080 and 4K unless it's really right next to each other and you're doing it. But in security, what is the resolution capabilities of some of these cameras?
So your resolution can go anywhere from a 1 megapixel to a 20 megapixel, and sometimes a little bit more. For industry standards, 8 is about normal. Is what people look for on the regulation side. 8 to 15. I think the regulation here in Massachusetts is 15 frames per second.
Gotcha.
As far as resolution, so that's close to close to what the eye would see, but actually it's a little less, about 24 frames. 24 frames per second is what the human eye can see, is as far as the resolution on the video side.
Right.
So there's different scales, but I definitely like to consult that. You want to have a good quality resolutions, especially to your entry points, your choke points. Depending on how your, either your farm is set up, an exterior farm or interior farm, you always want to make sure you have your choke points, with the highest resolution, with a robust system, so that you can identify exactly what's going on, see, for the regulation side.
Hey, that's our new friend, Ben Schauer from Salient Systems, and that, of course, is a video security service, and he is your New England rep, and he's a great guy. I can give him a plug. Maybe I just embarrassed him a little bit. Everybody, welcome back to the Weed Talk Live show. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Kurt Dalton from Cannabis.net.
And I'm David Rabinovitz, and again, still happy to be here.
I appreciate that. And David, you've got a few projects that we do want to get to, but I do believe we have Hillary on the line. And am I right, guys? Is Hillary King with us? Do I get any kind of confirmation? No, thank you. No confirmation. We're going to reach out to her. So, David, I'm going to throw it to you now. And this is what we call Phil. Tell us what are some of the projects you're working on for NewCan.
So, well, it's not just NewCan. We're working with a couple of clients on some cultivation facilities that are going to be great for social equity players. We had a private get-together in Worcester a few weeks ago. Did a survey, and what we learned is that most of the people who are in the social equity program, or those that attended, are most in. Oh, looks like we've got Hillary coming in.
Yep. So hold that.
So
thought.
We're going to come back to this.
Don't let me forget. Okay. All right, Hillary King, are you out there? And how are you feeling?
I am. I'm here, Jimmy.
Oh,
how you doing?
You don't sound. I'm really glad that you can't catch this through the phone, okay? Because you don't sound good. And I tell you, I give you a lot of credit. I don't know very many females that would actually take a selfie in their hospital bed and then share it on Facebook. Okay?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people do that.
Yeah, well, that's because you're a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read a couple of your statements? I did a little bit of this, but right now, as far as you know, you are not testing positive, or they sent you home without a test for COVID-19. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. They tested me for influenza, and that was negative.
Okay.
And at that point, with knowing where I've traveled in the last week in New York City, where, by the way, I saw a whole flight attendant crew from Cathay Pacific Airlines in my hotel lobby in New York last Friday. And then I live, a stone's throw from the Long Wharf. I live in the North End in Boston, which is a popular neighborhood, and I'm sure those folks at the conference were coming down for Italian food and cannoli. So, you just don't know. But they listened to my lungs and they did some tests and said that they think it's possible that I have it. And they really want to test me for it. And they're frustrated that they can't because this is the way that they explained it to me, is that MGH doesn't have their own supply of tests for this. And so they're relying on the state and the Department of Public Health. They have to test through them now. And because there aren't enough tests, they are saving them for people who meet this strict criteria, which is, A, having symptoms, and then either having known direct contact, that you've been in direct contact with somebody who is tested positive, they've confirmed to have COVID, or you've been out of the country in an area of outbreak in the last 30 days, and you know, I didn't meet either of those criteria. So, you know, most of the people that I saw in the screening clinic were actually just sent home without even an influenza test or anything like that. And for me, they actually, after those tests, they had actually admitted me to the ER and put me in an isolation room and, you know, treated me as if I do have it. And, you know, basically what they said was that they called up the chain to the DPH to ask if they could make an exception for me. And they said no. So they, just because I don't meet that criteria. And
did you tell him no, Jimmy?
Oh, don't make her laugh.
I was going to say.
Come on, that's not fair.
Hillary, I need to know, have you been using cannabis the last few days, and is it helping you? You're my last hope.
I have not been smoking, no.
Edibles? Anything?
I have been using cannabis. I have been using my CBD ingestibles. I have some THC-infused honey from All Kinds that I've been using. And, yeah, you know, I'm having edibles at night, you know, like I usually do. But
what is it like if you do an edible with whatever virus you have? Walk us through how it feels, an hour or two. You feel better, worse? Kind of what happens after the honey?
Yeah, you feel better, but I don't think that that's necessarily because it's doing something to the actual symptoms. I think it's, you know, calming your mind, calming your body, you know, making you feel good. THC, you know, the endogenous form of THC is called anandamide, and ananda is the Sanskrit word for bliss. So, you know, when THC binds to those same receptors, it makes you feel good, you know, and can kind of take your mind off of it, help relax, you know, your muscles in your body. You know, I've been having a lot of, like, body aches and you know, just general, you know, stuff like that.
Malaise.
So it definitely takes the edge off, yeah.
Yeah, I'm malaise. And it does take the edge off. So there you go, Kurt. You happy now?
I'm in.
Yeah, Kurt, go ahead.
Start tomorrow. I feel
day.
twice a day. We're starting tomorrow. Hillary told me.
But get some CBD in there too, you know.
Oh, come on. That's the legal stuff.
Well, we understand the entourage effect that the CBD works better when it has a little more THC to it, right?
Right.
So you are definitely a test case, actually, Hillary, I guess, to see how this can affect the COVID-19 virus. Let me ask you a question. A lot of media people have been talking to you, yes?
Yeah, they have. I posted about my experience at the hospital on Facebook, as you mentioned, and it went viral. You know, pun intended, and it got over 3,000 shares at this point. And you know, in my personal network, I know some of the reporters in the cannabis scene. So a couple of them came. A couple of these calls from reporters came just straight from people I know, and a couple were, people that I didn't know, just reaching out. Another interesting thing, somebody that I know, around the cannabis industry who actually works for the state, for the CCC, reached out to me. Bless him. Like, this was just really amazing. He reached out and he said, "Hey, can I do anything to help you? I have contacts if you need some help." And so he put me in touch with a city councilor's office, Michael Flaherty's office. And they got on the phone with me pretty immediately. I told them what was going on. And they said they'd do some digging, and they called me back about 20 minutes later and said that they had called around, and what they found, and this came from the mayor, the Boston mayor's office health line, was that the regulations that are keeping me from getting tested are federal ones. And so there's not much they can do.
That, you know what? I'm sorry. That would absolutely piss me off beyond.
I think it goes back to we don't have enough kits. If we had 1 million of them laying around, she'd get tested. But it's crazy that you got tested for the flu. You don't have it. We think you have
COVID-19. Go ahead.
But we can't test you for that. Good luck.
Go into self-quarantine, right? And did they say 14 days? And can I ask you, don't you have a live-in partner?
Yeah, they said 14 days from the onset of symptoms, and that's as long as your symptoms have gone away. So it could be longer if the symptoms persist.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I do. I live with my partner, Antonio. He actually works out of our home. We have a Pilates equipment studio here in the North End that he teaches private lessons out of. So, that's going to be disrupted. But, he actually is not in the country right now. He's in Costa Rica leading a yoga and Pilates retreat with a group from the Boston area. And he left on Sunday morning, so it's in the back of all of our minds that, he might have, if this is what I have, he may have been exposed while I was asymptomatic before he left, which is kind of crazy to think about. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole.
Right, right, but it's part of this whole journey.
It is, exactly. So he's supposed to fly back, on Sunday. And
where's he going to stay?
Right now,
where's he going to stay?
He's not going to come home.
Okay.
I'm gonna glove up and put a mask on and put a bag together for him today, and then leave it outside the door so that they kind of are suggesting certain number of hours that this virus can live on different surfaces. So I'm going to leave him some things outside the door today. So that when he gets back, he's got what he needs, and then, he's going to go stay at our friend's apartment down the street. And, we have a good friend who lives in the neighborhood and just happens to be out of town till the end of the month. So he's going to stay over there so he can be right down the street and, bring me anything I need.
And I was going to say, how are you getting food? Are you doing takeout, delivery? Are you even eating anything? I know. You know what? First of all, you don't have to stay on the phone anymore, Hillary. It's okay. You know,
asking you what you're ordering out from Grubhub
right.
at this point.
Right.
Go to bed.
At this point, you know what? Just stop talking.
Yep.
Take lots of fluids
or honey.
Get some honey and tea. It could be the magic honey. And more importantly, we are thinking of you. We want you to get better.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and thank you for actually calling in and telling your story to the world. And gosh, tomorrow you're going to be all over the news. It'll be interesting to see what happens with you, Hillary. We wish you the best of luck.
Try to get
tested. Thank you so much.
You bet. That's Hillary King. Usually, David, she sits right where you are.
Yep.
Just want to say.
She spits a lot when she talks, too. I don't know.
No,
luckily, we're a monthly show, so you're okay now.
And luckily, Mike Zotos of Performer TV made it a point to tell us that they wipe everything down.
Fumigate.
And he's fumigated, and he's done a great job in getting as much germs out of here as possible.
That's good.
Okay? Back to what you were telling us a little bit, David, before we got Hillary on the line. What are some of the projects you're working on?
So we're working with a developer who wants to put together a shared facility for cultivators. So think about it like this. A social equity player could come in, rent 5,000 square feet in a 50,000 square foot building. And he's going to have most of it set up. I'm working with two folks this way. And in each one of the cases, we're working on getting a host community agreement. So instead of somebody having to go through a year of pain to get set up and started, once he has a license, he'll be able to bring people in and let them grow within their facility while they go through the licensing process. Right? Really tipping a lot of what's going on its head and getting small craft growers into the business.
How frustrating is it that 4 years in after the vote that we're just now starting to see some action for the economic empowerment people and the social equity? You know how upset I get about it.
Right, but I look at it differently. I'll tell you what's more frustrating to me. More frustrating to me is there's 35 to 40 stores open right now, and one of the commissioners in the Cannabis Control Commission was interviewed and said they hope in 2020 we're going to double the number of stores out there. So imagine if we had 37, 38 stores, and they're hoping to get to 75 by the end of the year, when you've got 80 people who have provisional licenses, which means we've got a commissioner who doesn't have a clue about what the numbers are, or they know all sorts of things that they're not disclosing to the people in the industry. Either way, that's not good.
Yeah. And again, it's time that, and a lot of people they bitch, and yet a lot of people come back to the defense of the CCC too, because they have such a difficult job. Well, you know what? Do your job.
Look, they have a difficult job, and they may not have all their resources. But as you know, I'm a real data hound. you got to be clear on what your data is. And if you're the people who are running the industry, you should know what's going on within your own organization. It shouldn't be, because if that commissioner is correct, and they're only going to double the number of retail stores this year, you're going to see a lot of people run out of money. There's 80 provisional licenses,
which means all of those
80,
they have a spot, right, that they're paying for.
They've got a spot. They're probably paying for it. They got their local approval. They've now been approved at the first round by the CCC, and now what they need to do is get the store set up. Which means if they can't be licensed by September, something is really wrong with the system. Really wrong with the system.
So there's these bottlenecks, and you've talked about them, from the landlords to the approval of towns who don't want it. What are the two biggest bottlenecks? If you were the commissioner, what are the two bottlenecks that are completely slowing this down? What would you change? Boom and boom.
Boom and boom. Number one, I would allow for basically master licensees. Somebody to do what we're going to try to do with these cultivation centers. Because you've got a lot of people who want to get into the business, and there's a lot of ways to get people into the business. The other thing I would do is figure out a way to get some of the barriers down. And we figured some of that out. I'm working with somebody else on that, another prospective party that wants to get into the cannabis space. I call it the Nabisco model. Right? There's a lot of people who've been creating edible products and other marijuana-related products for 30 years, 20 years, and they're out in the market. They have a small customer base, and they said, wow, this is cool. I can get a license, and I'm going to get my stuff into stores. And then they begin to look at what they have to go through, and I'm not going to repeat what one of them said at a MassCan meeting, but I listened to somebody who told me there's no way that they're going to go through what they think they have to go through to get a license. So they're just going to stay in the illicit market. There should be a mechanism to get those people into the market, and it should be a lot easier than it is. And I think you could put in master licensees that could allow people to operate underneath them.
What about financial incentives or something like that? I mean, I don't get that.
This whole issue now of they're trying to convince the legislature to give them a fund so they can give out 0% loans.
Yeah.
I think it's good there's going to be a fund. I don't think that people need 0% loans. This is not a low-margin business, especially not right now. And there's no reason. The smaller operators need access to capital. They don't need free capital. And free capital means if there's no return coming back in, how do you help the next group and the next group and the next group, right? Because if one of them fails, now your fund goes down. You drop a little bit. You get a return on it, so people have an incentive to pay it back as soon as they can. And then you're helping the next group and the next group and the next group. There's a lot of things that could be done to help streamline this. I mean, what we're trying to do right now is I got two developers who want to help small cultivators. And I think with the way we're approaching it, I'll probably know within about 6 weeks if we're going to be able to pull off the first piece of this. But that would allow people to get into business really fast. Marijuana agent establishment card. Ask the Cannabis Control Commission if you could qualify to be an executive of a licensee, and if they say yes, you're off and running, and you're getting your license while you're running your business under a master licensee.
I like that idea.
Like, what did Oklahoma and Illinois do so much different? I mean, Oklahoma has
800.
It's like 2,900 dispensary approvals in like a night. Where did we just go? I think the wrong way.
I wouldn't look at Oklahoma. I've read a little bit about Oklahoma. I haven't looked at all the regulations, but I don't think Oklahoma is such a big market that they should have that many licenses.
Oh, sure.
So
no doubt.
From that point of view, I think we're better off than Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's going to wake up one day and realize that they've turned into Oregon.
Or Colorado in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, you got way too many people. They can't make money. They've got an investment. They need to cover their investment, so they begin to skirt a little bit of the law.
Yep.
Right.
And yet here we are. A lot of people, the people, if you will, voted this in, and you think that they voted it in so that those who enjoy this subject or this product, would feel much better about where it came from, what's in it, what's it going to do with me. In other words, it's almost like the people in power have done everything they can to screw up what the people who voted it in wanted.
Yeah, but again, I'll come to a little bit of defense of the state.
Yep.
Had all the knowledge.
Yeah.
And they really didn't do a great job at disseminating that knowledge to all the towns, right? You got most of Massachusetts are small towns. So now they get dropped in their lap this issue of they now need to figure out how they're going to make cannabis work. and some of them figured it out in a way that works, others didn't, and some punted. Take Natick, right? Natick was told by the Attorney General in December 2018, you guys are delaying, and therefore you don't qualify to extend your moratorium. You need to start taking applications when your December 31, 2018 moratorium is up. And Natick, to their credit, did not put in another moratorium. All they did was they refused to take applications. So for 13 and a half months, they're not taking applications until sometime in 2020. And over that period of time, the big, deep-pocketed investors scooped up the best real estate and sat on it. So what Natick has effectively done is made it so that they have a nice process, but none of the social equity and none of the economic empowerment applicants can get a toehold in Natick. They're not going to be allowed to compete. It's basically a rigged system.
And you have now the FBI coming in, asking towns for data and for documents, because there was a shenanigans where the town said, well, hey, all right, we're all going to get a piece of this action. We're going to throw in an extra tax, an extra fee. You're going to support the police. You're going to support this club over here. And yeah, they cried foul, the applicants and the guys who got the license.
So here's something to think about, right? Step back and take a look at that. Forget about whether it was right or it's wrong. Look at who's doing it. Andrew Lelling, the U.S. attorney, is now doing something that Maura Healey should do, but Maura Healey's office doesn't like marijuana, so she won't help the industry. And when people in the industry have gone to the Massachusetts Attorney General to say what some of the communities are doing is wrong, they've basically been told, go away, we don't handle that. Right. That's wrong. I mean, that people should remember that when they go to the polls.
Right.
Right? When the U.S. attorney has to step in to do the attorney general's job.
Of the state.
The state attorney general's job.
Yep.
That's something wrong. And this wasn't a case that everybody was so quiet about it. There's been a lot of industry screaming. There's a lot of nonprofits that have been complaining. There have been complaints lodged with the AG's office, and the AG's office says, we don't have any jurisdiction over host community agreement issues. Well, somehow the U.S. Attorney's Office does.
Right. Well, again, they have done everything possible to delay and retard the growth and the launch of a huge industry in their backyard that can be beneficial to local towns who are losing money, needing money to fill the potholes in their towns, repair the bridges, actually maybe even put money into education. And then here in the state taxes, they're not even distributing that money to where it needs to go.
Yeah, that's true.
So are we corrupt, or are they just continuing to deal with the stigma? They say this is a necessary evil. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to learn about it, and I want it away from me. So I'm just going to make it go away.
Edibles. Calm down. Let's give him an edible. Edible. Oh.
I got some right here. I mean,
edible. Whoa, blood pressure. Give me your perfect okay, not counting Bernie. What's the best outcome for cannabis in this election? You have to take Bernie out because that's the obvious one.
Well, look, I think right now it's obvious that Joe Biden, the best. Forget about politics, right? And I'm more of a centrist. The best outcome for cannabis is a really strong Democratic contender who says I'm going to legalize it, and that the current administration decides that they would like a whole bunch of voters to stay home, and a week or two before the election, they deschedule marijuana to take all the energy out of people's sales so that a whole bunch of the Bernie types will just stay home, right? Think about this. When you're happy, you get relaxed. You tend not to have as much energy. When you're mad as hell, you get very energetic. You see people who are holding signs, generally they're upset about something. So if you want to take people who are upset about marijuana and the state of legalization and what's going on in the country, and you don't want them to vote, it's real simple. Deschedule marijuana.
I know. You know who else has said that for the last... You've heard me say this. I won't be surprised. I said to Steve D'Angelo, when we sat down and talked with him in September, I said, I'm not going to be surprised that a week before the election, he who should not be named or will not be named by me, okay, will pick up the phone and deschedule cannabis in order to get those votes. And
not to get the votes, Jimmy. He won't pick votes up. What will happen is he will cause people to not vote for
The Democrats.
The Democrats.
Oh.
Right? And I'm not taking a position one way or the other. Your question, Kurt, was, what do I think is the best thing for cannabis? That's probably the best outcome.
Yeah, because we don't have that candidate, though, like you named, the centralist candidate of a Democrat saying, I'm going to legalize it without counting Bernie. So Biden, I don't feel, would do that. I think
No, Biden, the last I heard, just wants to drop it down to a
decriminalize
Schedule
it.
2.
Oh, Schedule 2, give it to the FDA, or to give it to Big Pharma, which is like a lot of people will tell you in cannabis, that's worse.
Yeah.
Right.
That's going to be 100% controlled by
That's
the
the
government.
worst. That's the worst nightmare of the
That's like-
industry. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, without going too far down to politics,
Yep.
the only way the Democrats are going to win are going to be to coalesce. And in order to coalesce, they have to bring Bernie on board. And to bring Bernie on board, they're going to have to pick up some of his platform.
Oh, that's an interesting little twist.
Well, as long as they have a change at the leadership level in this country, I'm going to be happy. What can I tell you? I make no secrets. I make no secrets which side of the fence I'm on.
So remember, we're on the marijuana side of the fence tonight, not politics.
And
That's
honestly,
fine.
a lot of this may come down to how long this virus lasts and what the market looks like come the fall. Because
Right.
The market is tanking, and right now in Japan, the market's tanking, and the Dow futures are down. So if you like blood in the street, and if you believe in online communications, buy some Zoom communication stock.
That's what
tomorrow.
you love.
It's
Wait.
going down more.
Can't they just stop trading? Can't they?
They do.
They do
Jimmy.
it on a day. It's like this. I understand.
There's
that.
a trigger.
Right.
As soon as the S&P drops, I think it's
7%. Yeah,
7%. It automatically kicks in a 15-minute stop in the market.
But is 15 minutes really going to make a difference? I mean, shouldn't they just like they're putting the entire world on hold for a couple of weeks? Call me crazy and nuts, because it won't be the first time.
What you're going to see is
the 15 minutes is because of computerized trading.
Right.
Yeah. At some point, though, there'll be buyers in the market who say, look, if this isn't going to get that bad, if this ends up being a longer blip of 90 days, we're still going to recover, and I will buy these stocks at X level, and that's how a market bottoms. Is someone
right.
says, you know what, at Dow 12,000, I'm in, or whatever the number's going to
Look,
be.
think about Warren Buffett, right? He loves stocks. And I read something about Warren Buffett a few years ago that I've taken to heart. And he said, I love stocks. So if you love something when it goes on sale, don't you buy more?
Yeah,
so when the
100%.
market goes down like this, I'm
He
sure
loves
he's
it.
buying like crazy.
Thomas English muffins. When it's buy one get one, I stock up on them.
Well, there you go. Start looking at the stocks that you like in the market.
Might be a
because
better investment.
It's getting down to buy one, get one time, right?
Buy one, get one. What's next? What's next for the cannabis industry in the world in the country? Are we going? Go ahead.
Here's what's next.
What's next?
The big issue right now that I see on the horizon is going to be cultivation canopy. I don't think that I'm not seeing that there is a strong anybody's got their handle on how much cultivation canopy there is in Massachusetts. I looked at it in late
define cannabis canopy, please.
Canopy, indoor,
canopy. Indoor cultivation.
So, the license classes. You can have a license, and you can, as a licensed grower in Massachusetts, you can be licensed to grow up to 100,000 square feet of canopy. So you can get a license that is from 0 to 5,000, 5 to 10, and then it goes 10 to 20, all the way up to 90 to 100. Right? I went through and looked at all the licenses that have been handed out and took a look at how much canopy there is on licensed growers. The range is 1.8 to 2.5 million as of late January. Then I looked, there was about 124 cultivation applications behind that. And I assumed if they're going to look the same as what's out there, we could be in the almost 6 million square feet of canopy range. I don't know how much canopy we need. And if somebody out there knows, I'd be thrilled if you drop me a line. I'd love to talk to you about it. But we're going to get to the point where we've got enough canopy. But with the licensing going so slow and so many people so many license applications in the queue, that when supply and demand finally come into balance, they're not going to stop, because you're going to have people who have provisional licenses and people who have already applied. And if they stop at that point, it's going to take a year before they catch up and realize that we've got too much capacity. And the place I would hate to be as an investor is overcapacity in a long-term capital investment, which is cultivation, when you got a short-term product, which is agriculture. I mean, I haven't yet seen anybody who grows apples or avocados inside a warehouse. And think about, right, Bruce Linton. It would have been nice if he were on tonight. His former firm just idled 3 million square feet of greenhouse space, in part because they're growing outdoors. Now, I've listened to everybody tell me how I'm nuts thinking you can grow outdoors in Massachusetts. But
Hey.
sounds like they can do it in Canada. And if they can do it in Canada, they can do it down here.
And how was that winter we just had? Right? I mean,
well-
there is climate change going on. I think we all
No, you're
going
going
to
to see climate change in the next 10 days. You remember what happened after the terrorist attacks in 2001? How when they grounded all the airplanes, what the APA found out was the air quality in the United States within about a week went through the roof. It was much better. Well, now that the airlines are starting to ground flights because there's not enough demand, I bet you're going to hear within the next couple of weeks when things begin to die down a little bit that the air quality is substantially improved.
Let's hope
Which
that
will help
does-
outdoor grows.
Right.
I happen to think the outdoor grows. I think outdoor grows and greenhouses are very good ideas. And one of the reasons is I've listened to people say you can't make money using greenhouses. But even if you can't grow all year long, when you start to talk to people with sizable grows and they're talking about $200,000 a month plus for electric bills,
Right.
man.
Well, that's why I think the solar industry, that's why solar therapeutics, I think that the cannabis industry should not be required necessarily to be solar, but there should be financial incentives to go solar, just like they do with your houses now, right?
As soon as there's enough grow and supply and demand come into play, come into balance, prices are going to come down, and you're going to see a lot more people trying to grow outside because the risk of crop theft will go down. I talked to somebody who you know well, Maggie, who has told me that they believe they will get their pricing down, and this is small grows, down to $100 a pound.
Wow.
Right?
And that's good.
Wow.
I
Massachusetts,
remember that.
Yeah, I was going to say Maine is that's getting down there.
Right. You're not going to have to go up to Maine, Kurt.
Right. No. Hey,
Think of all the gas you're going to save.
That's right.
Yeah, and bring down the air quality is going to improve around my house.
All right, I got to wrap
All right.
this up, guys. David Rabinovitz, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming in
Great
today.
being here.
Kurt Dalton from Cannabis.net, Mike Zotos and his pal Austin, thank you for helping us out, including our guests, Jacques Santucci, Dr. Ryan Zachlin, Dr. Jordan Tischler, and, of course, Hillary. Feel better, Hillary. We love you. We miss you. And we'll see you next month here back at Performer TV in Quincy for more Weed Talk Live. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there.
Thank you.